Welcome, everyone, to episode 37 of The Bunker Talk. Very special guest here today. Super excited because I've never had anyone that is an expert in this field like you. So you're going to be the one and only episode so far of 37 that is an expert and is going to school us on connection. So thank you so much, Dr. Julie, for being with us. The business is Collectively, which I love the name.
Thank you.
I love it. Tell everyone about yourself.
Okay, so thank you so much for having me here.
Thank
I'm
you
looking
for
forward
time.
to hanging out.
Hanging
with
out,
you.
right?
Yeah.
That's what this kind of has turned into. And then I love spending time with people that I respect and that I can learn from. So thank you for your time.
Right
I know
back
you're
at
very
you.
busy. Thank
Right
you.
back at you. So a little bit about me. Well, I am a licensed mental health counselor by trade and was working in the behavioral health field for many years, working with children and families, low socioeconomic families that were really struggling, and became really frustrated and a little disenfranchised with our systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I found that we would help people in the moment and stabilize whatever crises they were experiencing. And then, slowly, surely, 3, 6, 9 months later, after their life had stabilized, they were coming right back into services. And I wanted to explore that a little bit more because I'm a little bit of a geeky researcher. And so I went back to school and I got my doctorate in public health, which focuses on prevention and inequities. And it became really apparent to me that the way that our systems were designed was contributing factor to why people are not getting better. And so I conducted a couple of research studies where I talked to families who are struggling with their mental health and said, okay, so, is the system working for you? And if it's not, why not? And what would work? And at the end of the day, people said, no, surprisingly, system's not working. But then also what they really want is to have their needs met in a way that's a little bit more natural through their family, their faith, their friends, their community, something that speaks to their culture. And so I became really passionate about trying to prevent mental health conditions by focusing on helping people get connected to support and building connections and managing their social capital. And it kind of just has evolved. I'm like on this journey of every day I turn around and the problem has changed, but the solutions seem to be pretty similar. And so I really love the work that I'm doing these days, focusing on what I call the social influences of mental health, because there are so many people who are struggling. Let's be clear, right?
Yeah. More than ever.
More than ever. Yeah, we are experiencing a global mental health crisis. And then even more, specifically is a loneliness epidemic. And so this research that I've been doing for years and years and years is very relevant these days. And I think it's timeless too. But, I'm passionate about sharing the research that I've done to support children and families and communities and organizations and individuals. And, everybody can benefit from social connection. So that's kind of me. That's it.
That's amazing. First of all, the first doctor on the podcast as well. So
thank you.
That's amazing. And you said so many important things there. I want to ask you one question that I have for myself. So I'm sure the audience would too. This concept of social capital, what is that?
So it's interesting. It's actually confusing. And when I was doing my research, that was one of the things that I studied in my dissertation years ago. And so people think social capital, our mind immediately goes to money, but it's not money, it's resources. And so social capital is access to people, places, community that give you additional further access and support. And so it's things like being part of a community that if you needed something, somebody in that community has your back. So Daily Drip is social capital. And I constantly remind,
that's great. Yeah.
I remind Nicole and Romy of that they've created something.
Correct.
It's a beautiful thing because if anybody in that group needs something, we've got each other's backs, And so in our world, places like faith-based communities or if you work for an organization and there's that kind of organizational culture where you can support each other, that becomes social capital. And so it's not necessarily financial, though many times it is financial.
That's interesting, though, too, because I think that, and maybe it goes, I don't know, you're the expert, but in my mind, maybe it goes tied to the fact that everyone is experiencing a sense of this loneliness or the mental health struggle, whatever it is that you're experiencing. And so having that community of resources has never been more needed.
100%.
So I think maybe it wasn't obvious that it wasn't available, only those specific people that were struggling. But now, since it's so broad, right? And it's more, the struggle is more real for us, right? I guess it was always real for those that had it, but there's so much attention around it. There's so much focus on it, and conversations are happening now. How much of it do you think is that people are just more open to talk about it? And then you realize, well, wait, there's so many people that feel this way.
Well, I do think that's part of it. It was something that has been happening for a long time. The research demonstrates that since the 1990s, there's been a significant decrease in social capital in the way of participation in faith-based community, civic organizations. And so it's been a steady decline. And so it's not necessarily like, oh, COVID made all of us wear masks and go in our houses. It was happening before COVID. And when you don't participate in those community organizations, you don't have this sense of belonging, mattering, purpose. And all of that is what increases our positivity about ourselves, the way that we feel and how we feel connected. And so when you look at the data around connectedness, there are so many contributing factors to why we're struggling collectively as a nation, as a global nation, right? So part of it is technology, and we'll talk.
I was going to say the 1990. I mean, it's on the rise of the internet, right?
Yeah. So definitely, social media is a big piece of it. Also, just, I don't know if you noticed, but we don't really trust each other these days. And so there's a little bit of an issue with that. Like, if I don't know what you're going to say, I might just not even engage. And so that breaks connection. Or even there are people in your life that you know and love, but you believe differently, and now you don't connect with them.
Especially now, right?
Especially now.
Now it's never been more polarizing to talk to people. Even honestly, I think that you have the research. Obviously, this was not born during COVID. COVID, I think, just shed light on it and made it worse. And it was a global thing, right? It wasn't maybe nation specific or geographically specific. It's something that we all faced. But I think that socially, even myself, I would say that era, those couple years changed me as a social person. I think that normal interactions that I used to have, I got so used to not having them that now it's taxing to have them.
Yeah.
And so, but speaking for myself, I think it's doing me harm.
Yeah.
And I haven't realized, I think I'm realizing it now, finally, but because I didn't think I needed it. Like, I got so used to not having it, right? But the part of what you're saying is so, it's just like, man, even if it's taxing, it's something that humans need.
Yes, we are social creatures by nature. If you look back into the Stone Age days, if you were isolated, you didn't survive. It was only through community and people who had your back if something happened that, you were able to function and survive. And we are still social creatures. And COVID did definitely exacerbate what was already happening, for sure. But things like, maybe if you're somebody who practices a faith, and every week you would go to church or some, synagogue or wherever you went. And then it all became online during COVID. And now you can log on and watch the sermon in your PJs. And so we don't go to church. But the thing is, what did you do after that service?
Right, you would go eat.
You would go eat with people, right? And you would connect with people and mull around.
Well, and you would share the connection of worshiping together too.
Yeah.
Like, that is bonding.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And so all of that's gone because it's easier and more convenient. So we've compromised connection for convenience. And it's a problem because it's just so easy to go home on a Friday night and watch Netflix and order in Uber Eats or whatever. And it's so much easier that people do that instead of connecting. And then they wonder why they're feeling, down.
I think even that, right? Like, my groceries get delivered to my house.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even go to the grocery store and interact with people.
Right.
So, and I'm fortunate, right? That I mean, I'm in an industry where I have to communicate, and I've started this. So this has been it was taxing at first. And now I'm finally enjoying it because I'm having, and I do feel like I'm making connections with people and I get to support their businesses, all that good stuff. But when you think about a person that works from home, a remote employee that gets their groceries delivered, will order food on Uber Eats, doesn't go to the movies, binge watching Netflix from home, doesn't go to church anymore. Literally, they're alone. Yeah. And their family doesn't live in the state.
Right. And that's what happens. Right?
That is what happens. It's why, and I think that at first it feels so good because of the convenience. I love that you said that. Like we don't realize that we're sacrificing connection for convenience. And I've absolutely done that.
Yes.
I have done that in most areas of my life. And I think now I feel like it has taken a toll on me.
It does. It catches up with you. And all of a sudden you realize like, wait a second, I'm lonely.
Right.
You know, and you can be surrounded by people and still feel lonely. And that's kind of a different thing. But when we can help ourselves, we need to.
Right.
Which means, it's, you know, just, I kind of like compare it to going to the gym. It's like you don't want to go to the gym, but then after you go, you're really glad you did it. Right. And people say that about like, oh, yeah, I was just going to sit home and order whatever, but I decided to go meet my friend. We had a great time. I'm so glad I did it. But it's that like muscle, practicing that muscle of like doing the thing that you just kind of don't feel like doing, recognizing that it's for the greater good of yourself and other people.
Right, right. Everyone needs it. And it's funny that you said the gym too, because I thought about that too. During COVID, I bought a Peloton.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like literally if I didn't come to an office and if I wasn't part of groups, it would be, and I don't have children, it would be isolating.
Yeah.
It would more isolating, I would assume.
Yeah. So I have, 3 boys and I'm a brand new empty nester. Yeah. And they all went away to school, and I work mostly either remotely, like Zoom in my office at home, or I'm traveling around, but I do a lot of speaking engagements where I don't really know people.
Right.
Like I know the person who's paying me to be there, and whoever comes up afterwards and says like, oh, thanks so much. But otherwise, I don't
They're not
really
deep.
know. Yeah. You don't make these deep conversations or deep connections to people. So I have to be very intentional, because I could go days without seeing a human, if my husband's working or whatever.
And I don't want to say the husband don't count. Like the spouse doesn't, but it doesn't count, right? Because it's someone that you do life with. It's different, right? I feel like, and you could tell me, I would assume that this connection, we need it from different sources, not just one person.
We do. You definitely do need to have different kinds of, there's different kinds of friends.
Sure.
You've got
different levels.
You've got your friend that you're just going to have fun with, your friend that you're going to cry on their shoulder, the friend that you're going to have deep conversations, the friend that's your, party friend.
Right. And you need them all.
Yes.
They serve a purpose.
Yeah. The party friend more though.
Oh, listen, I'm a good party friend.
Yeah.
I love to party. I'm getting older though. It's taking a toll on me. That's taking a toll on me too.
Well, that's the thing about like the not going out, is like part of our brains is like, well, I'm older now. I don't need to go out on a Friday night,
right.
So I think it like all kind of happened at the same time in terms of like COVID, wear a mask, can't go out. And also this feels so nice to just relax. Right. Feels so good because I'm older and more mature. But in reality, even if it's just going to, I do a lot of, in my neighborhood, I have a couple of really good friends, and we just walk. And we'll get together and for an hour and a half, walk and talk and gab, and that's fine. So I don't need to go to a bar and party, but that's still the connection that I need.
Right. So obviously the research shows, I don't think it's a coincidence. Internet gets a boost, connections start falling. Talk to us about the argument of people, but the internet, the texting, the social media has made me more connected with people than ever. Now I don't have to buy a calling card. I remember I had a friend that lived in Chile, and when she moved, I would literally have to go buy a calling card for $25 to speak to her for 3.5 minutes.
Right.
That's not a thing anymore. Right. So like technology has increased and the advancements to help our connection has increased. But so then why is it opposite? Or is it not opposite? Is it just a different type of connection that maybe is new? Like, what is the answer to that?
It is confusing, right? Because there are so many benefits to technology. Right. I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh no, it's all terrible. There are amazing benefits to connection. It helps us be more productive. It does help us connect. It helped us connect when we couldn't connect in person. Right. There are lots of positives around. And though, if you look at the data, it's actually kind of scary. So when I do presentations, I share graphs and tables and all kinds of, fun science.
Yeah, you have facts.
Yeah,
you're not making it up. Yeah.
And so there's this one table that just always makes people like that their minds blow, because what it shows is like the decrease in the amount of time that we spend with our friends. And it's not just young people. You think it's like young people or elderly, but it's not. Every age group is represented there, right? And you see the steady decline in the number of time that you spend, with your friends. And there's like this line in the middle of it's around 2012. that you can see all the numbers start kind of declining. And then the next slide shows the increase in depression and anxiety, and depressive symptoms, suicide attempts. And those numbers start significantly going up around the same time, this 2012. And so when you look at them together, you recognize that around that 2011, 2012, something significant happened that made the amount of time we spend with our friends decrease while depression and anxiety increased. And then when you think about it, it's like, well, what happened in 2012? You're thinking like, I don't know, is there like some kind of historical event that occurred or whatever? What happened was in around 2007 to 2009, there was the release of the smartphone. But at around 2011, 2012 is when social media was placed on the smartphone. So Instagram, all the things became very in your face with notifications and colors and bright lights. And I'm in the middle of a conversation, I get dinged, so I stop talking to the human in front of me. And all of these things have decreased our need for in-person time with friends, but also they result in increased depression and anxiety. And so the data doesn't lie, numbers don't lie. And so when you look at that, you say, okay, so what do we do now? Because we're here in this place where our numbers are way, way up. And there's a direct correlation. In some places, a causation with young girls, causation. In some places, just correlation. And so we need to pay attention to that. And that's something we have control over. And so I'm really, the majority of the work that I do these days, speaking from prevention of mental health conditions, is what are the things that we have control over that we could stop doing or start doing that would impact our mental health? And how do we do those things? That's like, and that is like across every industry, age group. You know, our grandparents can start doing things different. Our children can start doing things different. In the workplace, we can start doing things differently. All of those things, you know, if everybody did the couple of things that were really impacting them, we would decrease our mental health crisis.
Wow.
We just solved all the problems of the world.
Here we are. I mean, bye guys. No, I was going to say, well, I have two questions. First, I don't want to forget, but I'm going to ask you, obviously, like, what are a few of those things that we can do that we can control? So I just don't want to forget my other one. So don't forget that one. But
you expect me to remember? Okay, I'll do my best.
But that different, the causation versus correlation. Can you explain that to me?
Sure. So, I mean, scientific, mathematical, right, formulas that you use to figure that out. But sometimes two things are happening at the same time. And we're not 100% sure if one caused the other or if they just happen to be happening at the same time. Whereas sometimes you can look at the data and go, no, this is a direct, this is the reason that happens.
So you had said that there's the causation, especially in young girls.
Yeah.
So what is it that's happening?
So our young girls are really struggling, and it's mainly related to social media. Our young boys, they focus more on the video games, which it oftentimes is multiplayer, and you are communicating with others. But with young girls, it's about their self-esteem, their images that happen on social media, body image, comparison. And you're able to really recognize how significantly it has impacted young women, young girls. I was just having a conversation the other day with an older gentleman who was talking about how one of his younger relatives, was on social media striking the pose, and how that he just has it was judging her. And I said, well, he's like, 'cause she's what she's doing doesn't fit into society. And I'm like, actually, she does. She's more relevant to her peer group making, faces on social media than we are judging her for not doing that. So part of it is we have to understand and get with the times, but then part of it is we have to help protect these young people from doing the things that they're doing that we know are going to result in further mental health conditions.
And so then that aspect of what are a few of the things that we can control to better it for ourselves, even my parents, honestly, I'm going to be super honest. I think even for us, I worked with my parents all of my life, right? My adult life. So I'm very fortunate. We have a great relationship. And I just went this morning for breakfast before coming to work. They live down the street. So I see them often. We have a great relationship. But I would lie if I would say anything different other than, my dad and my mom got on Instagram And I would say that our communication has changed some, and it's great. They're sending me great dog videos that they love. And I love that, right? It's a different avenue of communication, right? Where you're sharing things that you enjoy to watch and that they make you laugh or they make you think of a person.
Yes.
Cute.
Yes.
But has it changed how we communicate in person? Probably. I feel like I know I have a special relationship with them because I've spent my adult life working with them. But imagine if I didn't live here, would I make an effort to actually pick up the phone and call them because I saw 7 dog videos that my dad sent me and I said, cute, oh, this reminds me of this dog, right? I think that that's the problem, is that it has, that sort of communication has replaced, oh, I don't have to pick up, like, oh, I mean, it could be 2 weeks and I feel like, man, I haven't spoken to my dad on the phone.
Right.
That's not my scenario, again, because of the proximity, but I could see how someone could fall into that. And you feel like you're communicating with them, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's like fake. It's not real.
It's connection. It is connection, right? You're connecting, you're understanding what's in their world view at that moment. Yeah. But it doesn't give us the same impact on our physical bodies. So, when you connect in person, there's an increase in oxytocin, like the hugging, so when you do that differently, different chemicals within our body impact us in different ways. And so it's not bad connection, but you need to have like 8 hugs a day. And so if all I do is scroll, I'm not getting that same input into my body. That's going to be for like my maximum mental health. And so it is hard. You want again, convenience for connection. It's much easier to just send a dog video. Like my father doesn't really text at all, and he's not on social media. And so my kids, they text. I mean, that's the way, the main form of communication for young people. And, it's like, I have to say, Grandpa, it's not going to work. Pick up the phone. And he's trained them that they need to talk to him on the phone because he doesn't do the way that they do it.
And honestly, it's convenient because I could be sitting listening to you on stage talking to my mom.
Exactly.
Right. And I could text her something that I learned that I think would make an impact. That I think that actual connectivity that the technology has given us is that false sense of true connection. Like there's connectivity in methods of communication, but that doesn't mean that we're connected, because even the texting, there's no tone, there's no excitement. You can add a million emojis. Like it does not land the same.
It definitely doesn't. And it also impacts your brain because that multitasking that we all do, I cannot tell you, I could literally I shouldn't say this out loud, but I could literally be on a Zoom speaking to a group of people and scrolling on social media or texting somebody, right? While words are coming out of my mouth and I'm still doing other things with my fingers, and that multitasking impacts our neuroplasticity and changes the way that we actually bring in information into our brains. So people who think that they can multitask or do multiple things at one time, like regarding social media, it makes them think slower. It makes them process information differently. It's not helping us at all. And so the social media, it does something called captures and scatters, where it captures your brain attention and then scatters your thought process. So we're not thinking as clearly.
Write that down. That's so good. I've never heard of that.
It's terrifying, but it's like we all just do it every day thinking, oh, I'm being more productive, right? I'm getting multiple things done at one time. So look at me. But in reality, it's hurting us.
You have blown my mind. Honestly,
it's my favorite emoji. Since we're talking about social media, the mind.
That's exactly how I feel. I actually told someone recently, honestly, it might have been the podcast with Malia I had a couple weeks ago. Yeah, she's great. It might have been her. I don't remember, but I was telling someone how I feel like I'm on notification overload.
Yeah.
And I have all the badges shut off on my phone. So like I don't get the Facebook or the LinkedIn badge, just my text message ones, right? But like
Same.
I could be talking to the same person via text message, a LinkedIn DM, an Instagram video, and it's like 4 methods of communication with the same people, sending you different things, where it's like I have felt myself that I just can't get to everything
No.
mentally.
Yeah.
Like it's taking like I feel scattered.
Yes.
Okay. So how do we control it? What are some of the things?
Okay. So, the first thing that I always tell people is to take an accurate assessment of how much time you're actually spending on the phone. And it's a little painful, but I usually do this in large groups of people, and I'll be like, all right, pull out your cell phone. And we do some math, right? So we look at our screen time and look at our daily average, and then you're going to multiply it by 7 days a week, 24 hours in a day, divide it by, 364, right? At the end, you divide it by 30, you get this number that says the number of months that you spend on your phone. And then I'll ask people, how many people 1, how many people 2, how many people 3, before they know that it's months, right? And you got people that say like 7. And it's like, okay, so that person that said 7, no shame, no blame, but that's 7 months of your life that you're on this box, this rectangular box. But now, having said that, what do you use it for? Because like for me, I probably can't find my way out of my neighborhood without GPS.
Right.
Right.
No, I agree.
I listen to meditation apps and
I listen to Audible.
Yes, Audible, music, texting, email, pictures, all the things.
Pictures. I think the problem to, I'm telling you, this is like these podcasts have turned into like a therapy session for me. But I think that one of the things, one of the things too, it's like, so this is also a method of conducting business now.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. So like I wake up, I'm doing really good with my goal, waking up at 5:30 in the morning to do my things. And I know the worst thing you could do is pick up your phone.
Yep.
You're supposed to have an hour of downtime. I don't do that.
In both directions.
In both, right before bed and in the morning. I've heard that, and that it's the most critical time for your mind. Yeah. I have not implemented that yet. Well, my alarm is also.
I know that's
it's on the phone.
I know.
So, I realized that like how much it's separating the personal use and the business use of it, right? So like I wake up in the morning and like I get ready for the day. I walk downstairs, do that stuff, right? And then I sit on my phone and it's like, well, that's my LinkedIn post time, right? Well, it takes me 27 minutes to make this post and I'm just staring at the screen. Like it's mind numbing. I keep interrupting you. How do we control it?
No, but I know, but that's exactly the point, right? So what are the things that you could do? And again, easy for me to say because I myself, same situation. You know what I mean? Actually, I don't sleep. So I'm like all night long. I'm just like trying to hit another meditation app without actually seeing how many messages are there. So I don't get sucked into looking at the messages instead of pushing the meditation app. But so, once you have an idea of what your numbers are, like once okay, I'm going to give myself credit and, the GPS, nothing I could do about it. Audible, nothing I can do about it.
Even if you cut the time in half, it's far too much.
Or not even. Pick the one thing where you're like, you know what? I'm feeling like recognizing on this, how much time I spend on LinkedIn, I'm going to decrease this. Or if you're somebody who does a lot of selfies, well, let me just not take selfies. Let me just try to do things in a different way. Because that actually, the frontward facing camera was one of the reasons that bumped up usage on the smartphones in that 2011, 2012 era, was just forward-facing cameras. But even if you can just figure out like what that thing is and try to lean in on that a little bit, that's one thing. Also, you already mentioned turning off the notifications. Great. Turn them off, all of them. I mean, I have texting on too. But yes, the main, the ones that
the regular
are distracting.
Ones, right.
But then also making a commitment. Like you ever go to a restaurant and you look around and like everybody at the same table is on the phone.
I'm guilty of it.
Yeah. And it's like you're sitting there with humans right in front of you, but you're all on your phones. Make a commitment. Like if I go out with girlfriends, we put the phones in the center of the table. First one to grab the phone buys the next drink. That's it. Right. We're just going to we're making a concerted effort unless somebody's like, well, I'm waiting for a phone, whatever. Fine. As soon as you get it, then you put it out. Right.
Because what we're doing is we're sitting at a dinner table and we're opening Instagram.
Exactly.
And we're opening TikTok. We're opening the social media apps. That's what we're doing. We're not communicating. We're not having that important conversation,
My son,
checking emails.
My oldest son, because he was no social media for my kids when they were growing up. And he went to 9th grade and was starting a new school, sitting at the table for lunch with 5 other boys that he didn't really know because it was the first day of school. And he had no social media on his phone. And lunchtime, they all pick up their phones and they all are on Snapchat and they're all snapping each other. And he doesn't have the app. So they're all laughing and giggling and showing each other things. And And he's literally sitting at the table with 5 boys, but could not communicate with any of them.
Wow.
Because he didn't have, and of course he came home like, Mom, I need, and I was like, no, not that one,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
but it's like, that's what our kids are struggling with. But it's like, if we make a commitment to each other, like, okay, it's going to be a phone-free dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I was just over in Amsterdam, and they had like a no-phone zone where it was like an awesome coffee shop, and like everybody was in there talking to each other. Nobody was allowed to bring their phones in. They did the same thing. They did a game night, and it was like nobody's allowed to bring their phones in. They took pictures and then shared pictures with everybody that was there. So nobody had like, oh, I just want to take a picture. No, this is the way it's going to happen, So we can do it. We just have to make that hard choice to do it. It's not, for many people, it's not even like a FOMO thing, like, oh, I'm afraid I'm not going to see something. It's more like almost an addiction. Like we reach for it without even realizing it.
100%.
And so if you're at that level where it's like you can't not do it, well then sure, then it's time to do something about it and make a commitment, So I have a workbook that I've created, and it's called Connect 100 Ways to Create Happiness in Your Life. It's 100 different activities you can do to build connection, build support, build your social capital, manage your social media, focus on social inclusion, because we don't know what to do. But there's a workbook that has 100 things. Pick one.
Oh, I love that.
And try it.
Yeah.
I use it mostly with helping professionals because they're working with young people who are struggling. And so now they have tools to use with their young people. But really, like everybody can pull activities from there. You can use it in staff meetings. You can use it organizationally wide. You can use it in your faith-based organization, like anywhere that you feel like you need that connection or you need to build support or you want to manage social media differently. It's available.
That's amazing. That is, it's funny because I have been thinking about it just from my perspective of my own usage, and I'm, it's this, you own a business, you got to be found. And it's this pressure of showing up and engaging and being there and responding to comments. And honestly, it's a full-time job.
It is.
Almost. It's almost a full-time job. And I find myself, this is amazing that we're having this conversation now, because I have recently, probably in the last 6 weeks, I'm just like, I'm feeling different, and it has increased my usage of the apps because I'm trying to grow this business, right? Like it's like, it's this, you need it, but it's too much. When do you cut it off? And I think one of the things, which is very embarrassing for me to admit, but I will, because that's what,
that's
you gotta
what we
do.
That's what
you
we
gotta
do on the
do.
podcast,
but
right?
it's like, if I wake up at 2:00 in the morning and I go to the bathroom, I will unlock my phone and see who texted me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
What else are we going to do with our time?
Right. Yeah, but like, go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Right. Like, why?
I know.
So it's wild.
You should just put my face on your phone.
A sticker of Dr. Julie.
Right.
Yes.
So when you go to get your phone, there's like a picture of me with a big
I love
red
that.
sign,
Yes.
like
the no sign.
The no sign.
That's so funny. And I'm grateful that, I was not young when social media was out. I was maybe college when not even Facebook. It was like it was called like Ringo and like MySpace, like those were so benign, right? It didn't turn into what it is now. And I can't imagine the pressure of these all of the youth, but the girls specifically with the body image piece and their people. I feel like when I was in school, I got to go home and, I can't say I was really bullied. I was always very large for my grade. So I guess people were intimidated. I was not a fighter either, but I was
a lover, not a fighter. But
I was pretty left alone, but I mean, anybody that was bullied in school, it ended at school. You could go home to peace.
Yeah.
And that is not the case with social media.
No.
It doesn't end and it lives there forever.
Yeah, it does. I was actually just reading this really awesome book. It's called The Anxious Generation by John Haidt, and he's this amazing researcher around all things like this, And one of the things that he pointed out that I just feel is it's like it could solve our problems almost, but it's just never going to happen, is if we got rid of the like button, the like and the comments, and it was more like YouTube where, I mean, you can still like and comment on YouTube, but people just don't
They
do
don't,
it. They
yeah.
just don't, So it's like if Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, if there wasn't like that, you could just see what people are doing, but not feel like the pressure of like, oh, why didn't people like
Approval.
that? Right. Then it probably would improve our mental health a little bit. People wouldn't spend as much time because part of that is liking it, and it definitely would not impact the person who posted the way that it does to your point about bullying.
And I think Instagram did try their hand at that by being able to hide the number. So you can see the likes.
Oh, okay.
You could see that, instead of seeing like 78 people liked it, you could just see, likes. There's others liked it. And so only you, the creator, see it, I believe, but it doesn't display it for others to see it. So like that comparison factor of, man, I posted something similar. I only got 70 likes, but you got 4,000. What's wrong with me? That I wouldn't be able to see it as a user. So I think that was their attempt at doing that at like maybe taking some of the pressure off, on the comparison aspect, which is good. I can definitely see how that does have an impact as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't, to be completely honest, I am on social media more than I want to be, but not.
Right.
And I have staff that do my social media because it gives me anxiety. Yeah. And so that was just kind of a business decision that I made kind of early on. Is like, I can't do this because it really impacts me, but for my business,
you need it.
I need to show up.
But
there.
I love that, right? That's also a piece of recognizing it. Like, businesses need it. But if it's not for you, if you're not good at it, if you don't enjoy it, if it causes you any sort of stress, anxiety, don't do it. Pay somebody to do it.
Yeah.
That there is an avenue for your business to still grow without you having to be like glued to it. So
exactly.
This has been amazing so far. I didn't even expect for it to be this deep into this lane, but I want to talk about how do business owners apply this in their businesses with their employees. So many personalities in a business, so much drama with employees. What is the best piece of advice for someone that is struggling with creating a team culture, an organization of support? What do you think besides buying the workbook?
No,
because that's solid.
Thank you. I think, that's a complex question because we have multiple generations within the workplace. And for me, I see it that way because my brain just automatically compartmentalizes. I think it's really important to recognize the different personalities based on when they grew up and how they communicate differently and incorporate that into the work that you do. I absolutely adore this one person on social media that she herself is probably like, a Gen Zer, but she's a little bit older than most of the Gen Zers that work for her. But or maybe she's millennial, but she's mastered the way to communicate with them in a way that, like, when people my age watch it, it's hilarious because you're like, wait, how did you just let that person decide not to come to work today? But she does it in this she's not offended by it. She's just like, well, no, actually, that's your job. You're going to do that today, And they're like, well, no, I can't. She's like, okay, well then you just won't get paid, and it's like, no, wait,
right.
You're fired. Right.
Right.
But so I think part of it is really recognizing the different generations and how to communicate. And I believe, and I've done this with organizations, is to learn about the different generations and how they communicate so that you arm them with the tools of like, oh my gosh, are you seriously going to be millennial right now? So that instead of getting frustrated, you can be like, your Gen Z is showing. But helping people recognize, like, at the end of the day, these are the goals of the organization, and this is the part that you play in it. You can do things like helping to build a connected culture, like creating a socially connected organization by focusing on social connections, which includes what I'm just talking about because it's about communication. It's about me understanding where the disconnect is between your expectations and my expectations and what we're going to do differently to make sure that we achieve our ultimate goal collectively together. So I do think it's a difficult time. I do think that we need to draw some boundaries. Again, not to harp on the smartphone or, having internet access, but, if I'm getting paid from 9 to 5 and you're emailing me or texting me at 6 o'clock, What's my responsibility to respond? That needs to be identified by the organization, and that needs to be policy. Some generations will say, oh, I'm off the clock. Whereas others, like my generation and above, are like, why are you not responding to me?
Correct.
I'm your boss, and I texted you. And so having that communication and conversation about what the expectations are, and, you know, this whole notion of quiet quitting, that when that movement, myself, I really felt like that was the younger generations drawing a boundary for themselves. Other people see it as disrespectful to superiors. Other people see it as, you know, the decline of the workplace. You know, there's so many different ways to look at it, and none of them are right, and they're all wrong, right?
Right.
And they're all right. But I appreciated how the people that were deciding to quiet quit, as long as they were getting their job done, they were getting the job done that they were being paid for. But I would have preferred that rather than just quiet quitting, you could have spoken to a supervisor to say, like, look, this is what I'm getting paid for. I feel like I'm doing this and this and this above. So where's my compensation for that? Or this is what you can expect from me because this is my job.
But they can't have those conversations.
No, they can't have those conversations. They don't communicate.
Because they don't communicate.
They'd have to text it.
It might have been Lisa Rigoli. I think her article this week of the Daily Drip is about having difficult conversations.
Yes.
They're not equipped to do it.
No.
And I think that's a byproduct of not even having regular conversations.
Because they text everything.
They text everything.
Yep.
They can send they could send it in a text message probably. They have the guts to do it behind a text message.
Absolutely have the guts to do it.
But they can't have a difficult conversation in person.
Yeah. Well, that's because the environment they've not felt safe to have that conversation in the environment. Also because they haven't learned how to talk, but also because they don't feel like they're having a safe conversation.
It's funny too, because it's just like when you see your family is the perfect example of it, right? Your dad, no texting, no social media, criticizing the duck face, right? The duck lips, which we're used to it. It doesn't even stop the scroll, right?
No.
It's actually old.
Yeah.
Like you're still duck look. Like, what are you doing? Right. Like we were past that, but it's funny because it's like you have someone like him where someone like him that has an employee say, oh, well, I'm off the clock. Like he would laugh in their face.
Yes,
what are you talking
exactly,
about?
no.
I went to school. I went to work like
uphill both ways in the snow, barefoot, you know?
Right. And so and I'm not saying that that's right, but that's what, to your point of having the spread of the ages in the workplace.
Yes.
That's what causes tension and harms the connection. And then add remote working into it.
Yes. Oh, and remote working again, convenience for connection, convenience for communication. You know, it's exactly the same. It is so convenient to, you know, I was actually on a call with somebody today and she's like, okay, can you see my pajama bottoms before we get started? You know, it's just like, no, you're good. You know, like you're good, you know, because we were recording something. So it's like, that is so convenient. And it's so great that we have the ability to do that. And arguably it's more productive because, you know, driving back and forth, you're at the office and people are interrupting you. You know, like when I do writing, which is for me a very brain intensive project, I have to be by myself. Like when I was working in the workplace, if I was writing a grant or writing a report or something, I stayed home to write it because I needed that, you know, space. So, you know, but in the same breath, it's not good for connection.
So we've got the technology and the tools to connect us more than ever. Distance is not a thing, right? Which is the advantages, right? And we know more about each other's lives than I think most of us would care to. Like we don't need to know some of those details.
Your dogs, your cats,
right? The everything, the bathroom, the vomiting. I mean, we know everything, almost too much.
Yes.
But if anything, the oversharing of information, the accessibility to one another, it doesn't equal true, fulfilling, rewarding connection. Doesn't matter that I'm sitting at a table with 5 people and I have access to 7 people that we're in group text talking and it feels like, you know, we're up to date with their lives. We know all of those things. Still, all of that even combined, it does not have the same effect on us.
No.
Mentally, physically, developmentally, right?
Yes.
Like in all aspects. So, I actually met someone about 2 weeks ago we were at an event, and it was some of the Dilly Drip ladies. We were there, and she worked from home, and she said, I came to this event because I'm tired of talking to my cat and to my screen.
Get out of my house. I need to be around humans.
I need to get out of my house.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said to her, honestly, you recognizing that is huge. And I think that generation is more aware about their feelings, about their mental health. So I said to her, you recognizing that is so commendable, honestly. Like that you were able to take the action and willing to take the action to get what you need out of people. Like that's huge. But what is the best piece of advice for the person that is isolated by choice or work circumstances that they're remote and things like that? Like what are some of the things that they can do?
Well, so I mean, my latest research around this, and I'm still in it, because nonetheless, you know, we work on this all the time, and we're focusing on connection and support and whatnot, and it does help, but there's still something missing. It seems from what I'm gathering from people, from talking to thousands of people. It seems like there's a greater correlation between happiness and this kind of some of the elements of social capital. It's like a combination of all of them, but this purpose, mattering and belonging seems to make us a little bit happier than just having connection. You know, like you and I are connected, and well, we also are part of a community. So if I met somebody and I had a great connection and we had a great conversation, and it's like, okay, I'm connected to the person, that's great. But that's not going to give me as much happiness in my life than being connected to a community where I feel like when I'm not there, people are like, oh, where's Julie? We miss her, you know, or when I walk in, I feel like, oh, now I'm home. I'm with my people, you know. So recognizing the different levels, you know, and the workplace, you know, of course, you want to be connected to people so that we can be productive. Now, if we have a connection, that's great. But like, say, you know, I have a flat tire. Are you going to come change my tire?
Right.
No, that's my support system, right? So that's social support. But this sense of belonging, I think, is something that brings us a little bit closer and gives us a different level of peace.
Obviously, I have done zero research on this, but I actually gave a presentation in the insurance industry in April this year about community and the power of community for the professional development.
You're the expert. What do you mean?
No,
you haven't done research on it. You just gave a presentation about community. There you go.
But I had no like real statistics of my own work. But I was talking about it from a professional standpoint. Like if you're new into insurance, you know, you're required to get a license, but the license doesn't teach you insurance, right? So it's like, how do you find your community of support professionally, right? Like associations or a mentor, things like that. And I started the presentation drawing the parallel in between humans and elephants and how elephants are so connected and how they have a sense of community and how if one is left behind, they go and get them. And when one dies, they have a funeral for them. Like I can't even see an elephant because I'll cry. I'm obsessed with them. But like that concept of even to your point of like, for elephants, the being in a pack is what feeds them and protects them. And they're just instinctively like that. And I don't think that we're any different, really.
We're not. We kind of started the conversation that way. You know, if we were alone out in the wilderness, we're going to die. We're going to die. But if you're part of a community, then you've got people, you know, who have your back. If something happens, you've got that support. And so I'm leaning a little bit more into that these days to understand it more. But I really believe that we spend so much of our life in our workspaces that we need to make sure that we're creating our organizations with that sense of community. Like I have a really good friend who runs a very successful business, and like on a random Wednesday afternoon at 2:00, she'll be like, everybody in the conference room right now. And people come in and there's like a huge ice cream sundae celebration set up. Because she values community and she values people taking time to connect with each other. And she knows that at the end of the day, those people are not going to leave her organization. They're going to stay there longer. They're going to be more productive. Her bottom line will be better for it. That's not why she does it, but she knows that those are the outcomes associated with it. And so I think that, you know, more businesses need to recognize that these younger generations, they expect this.
Honestly, I think that some of them are willing to get paid less to have a good work environment with connection.
100%, right? And the other thing is like their connection includes things that maybe we didn't used to do in our industry, like being more personal, is
Right.
like, oh yeah, we're going to go out and,
Right.
drink and whatever. And maybe in the past, older generations were like, well, that's not appropriate.
Right.
You don't drink with your boss. And now it's like, they're shaming their bosses that they're not drinking enough,
Right.
and that's part of the expectation. So understanding the culture of the different generations, I think, makes for a good workplace.
Yeah, no, that is super good. Last 2 questions. What is the best, because I know that you do this, but you also are a business. What is the best piece of business advice you've received?
The best piece of business advice that I've received. I think I'm going to go with, well, I mean, I don't want to sound cliche, but like, surround yourself with the right people. But it's more like recognize what your strengths are, and lean into those, but then surround yourself with the people that about social media. Social media is a really important aspect of the work that I do. I know that it terrifies me, like pushing post on something. I literally have never posted my own Instagram because I don't even know how to do it.
Right.
But I have on LinkedIn. I'm proud of myself.
Yeah.
For that.
LinkedIn's different though. I feel like
Is it? Maybe it's not so scary.
I think so.
I was pretty good on Facebook, and then somebody hacked my account, and it's never been the same since, so I don't even use it.
Yeah.
But knowing that I've got somebody that I can just send a picture to and be like, this was awesome. Please, explain what it is. She'll send me the caption and go, is this cool? And then we
Perfect.
go. But so finding the people within your network that can help you be as successful as you want to be. Recognizing that it's all for the greater good, but you don't have to do everything yourself.
Yeah, I think that I totally get what you're saying. It's find your strength, outsource the weakness.
Yes. You're so much more articulate than me. Thank you.
No, well, because I think that that's also something I'm doing too, like trying to hone in on one of the books that I've read. I believe it's Who Not How by Dan Sullivan, and Dr. Benjamin Hardy talks about that. And it's you should, what is it called? I forgot what it's called, but it's this thing of it's like your it's at the tip of my tongue. It's basically your unique ability. Focus on your unique ability and only that, and delegate everything else.
I agree.
Because your weakness is someone else's unique ability.
Exactly.
So just find the people that can handle that task for you. So that is really good advice.
I love that.
The last question is, what is a couple books that you would suggest for people that want to learn more about this, maybe better it within their family, within their business, individually? This idea of connecting better, connecting deeper.
Oh my goodness.
What's your favorite?
So I don't know if you've seen my Zoom background, but like literally.
Yeah, you have so many
books.
Yeah,
I'm like, I don't even know where to start because that's like all I do is read books. One book that I really, really love is called The Good Life. It's Dr. Robert Wallinger. He also did a TED Talk about it. And it's basically this Harvard research study, the longest research study that looked at people and all the things that are like, could have impacted how long they live and how happy they are. And at the end of like 70 years of research, they honed in on its social connections. That makes all the difference. And I really appreciate that using research to, share that. Another book that I really love is it's called You're Invited by John Levy. And he talks about a lot about creating community. One thing he does that's super cool is he creates these dinners where you're invited to come to the dinner, but you don't know who else is invited to the dinner. And when I don't want to like spoiler alert, but when you get there, he basically throws you into the kitchen with all the other people that were invited, and you have 1 hour to prepare this meal. So like you're allocated to like creating the salad. Somebody else is doing this, somebody else is doing that. And you have to like work together with these total strangers that you don't even know. And then at the end, you all sit down and have the meal together, and you find out like you were preparing salad next to the president of NBC or an ambassador or a heavyweight boxer or whomever.
So cool. Yeah.
So you have no idea who these other people are, but just the act of doing the difficult thing together bonds you and creates the sense of purpose and community and mattering because you accomplish something with them. And I love that because for me, when I work with organizations and I do like team building activities, I'm always looking to create that sweet spot of like, we accomplish something difficult together and we're better as a group because of it, which creates that sense of community that you're talking about. So I really love that book too. And then right now I just finished reading The Anxious Generation. I think is really a great book.
I feel I could talk to you for hours because I mean, this isn't like a family podcast, but I mean, we didn't even talk about like, I'm not a mom, but I can't imagine the parents that are having these kids and the lack of understanding of communication between them. And there's so many avenues. This runs so deep.
It's very universal. Like,
right.
You know, and I
feel it's an everyone problem.
It is an everybody problem. And I also think too, like if you are a business owner, and the people that work for you have children, it's part of your responsibility to support them in their journey of parenthood, because it's really, really hard to be a parent these days. And it's really hard to be a kid these days.
Right.
But it's really hard to be a parent these days. And so, you know, one of the things that you can do for the people that work within your organization is to bring in people that can help them with answers. And do like during COVID, I worked with one organization. It was all virtual, but it was parents that had young children at home while they were trying to work. And this organization wanted to do kind of like a support group for all, because it was a national organization, but they had like, you know, 15 parents that had like under the age of 4-year-olds at home. And what they did is they threw them all into a Zoom together. And I facilitated that conversation to help them like troubleshoot and figure out how they can support each other. And all the kids were all on Zoom the whole time. You know, I was wearing a red nose the entire session because you never knew when a kid was going to pop on. But it was just like this, creating this sense of community for people. And it doesn't have to be only work related.
Right.
But don't you think that those people really appreciated the organization for recognizing what their biggest challenge was at the time?
And doing it on their time.
And
right?
doing it on
the
time.
company time
Yes.
is where you show commitment to the overall mission and the health of your employees.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about you being a TED Talk speaker. I mean, there's so much.
There's so much. We could talk all day.
All day. Thank you so much for your time.
No.
This was fascinating.
Thank you so much.
I am so fascinated by you and your research, and just to know you is a privilege because you're making a difference.
Oh,
and it's awesome to know that you know.
Thank you for creating this opportunity to share information with people. And thank you for being you.
Oh, well, thank you. Tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me at collectivelyus.org. You can find me, if you just Google my name, Julie Radlauer, and
you'll find out a lot of things.
So I've got my julieradlauer.com website for speaking engagements, and then my Collectively Us for the work that I do.
We didn't even get into the speaking. She has spoken all over the world, educating so many people, but that'll be the next episode. We'll talk about all of that stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for your time.